So can we have the chairpersons to please come forward? Can we request Dr. Dilip Kumar Sarangi sir to please switch on your camera and also unmute himself. We have Dr. Ameer Rahatekar to please also unmute herself. We can see her live. And I request the chairpersons to please give your permission for Dr. Lakshmi Srikhande to go ahead with her keynote address.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Ameer Rahatekar, and it's a privilege for me to be on this platform. And I'm really thankful to Lakshmi ma'am for organizing this super successful international conference with lots of lectures by such stalwarts of obstetrics and gynecology across the world. And I'd like to invite Lakshmi ma'am, who needs no introduction. She is the medical director of Srikhande Fertility Clinic, and she'll be talking on diabetes in pregnancy, which is one of the most controversial yet most common topic in obstetrics for all of us, with lots of implications on fetus and the maternal side as well.
Yes, thank you,
ma'am. The floor is yours, ma'am.
And that is why I have invited you as chairperson, because I know you are a fetal medicine consultant. So you will be able to give your expert inputs after my talk about the fetal implications. So good evening, dear friends. Topic of my deliberation is diabetes in pregnancy. It can be a pre-existing diabetes or a gestational diabetes. Pre-existing can be type 1 or type 2, and gestational diabetes can also be a pre-existing diabetes, or it can be a true GDM. Pre-existing diabetes is diagnosed before the start of pregnancy, or hyperglycemia diagnosed for the first time in pregnancy. It meets WHO criteria for diabetes mellitus in non-pregnant state, and it may occur anytime during pregnancy, including the first trimester. Whereas the gestational diabetes mellitus is hyperglycemia during pregnancy, that is not diabetes. It is hyperglycemia diagnosed for the first time during pregnancy. It may occur during any time in pregnancy, but most likely after 24 weeks of gestation. The prevalence of diabetes is 22 million women between the age of 20 to 39 years, and it is expected to rise by 20% in next 10 years. So it has already risen by 20%. 54 million women with impaired glucose tolerance or pre-diabetes have the potential to develop GDM if they become pregnant. And the prevalence of GDM in India varies from 3.8 to 21% in different parts of the country, depending on the geographical locations and the diagnostic methods used. And of course, it is more prevalent in urban areas than in rural areas. So in my presentation, I will be covering the definition, screening, diagnosis, antenatal, intranatal, postnatal, and prevention in a nutshell. Pathology, pathophysiology of GDM, everyone is aware, so I am skipping the slide. I just want to emphasize the difference between a screening test and a diagnostic test. The purpose of screening test is to identify asymptomatic individuals with a high probability of having or developing a specific disease. That is why for GDM, we talk of a screening test. So whom to screen? Government of India says all pregnant women should be mandatorily screened between 24 and 28 weeks of gestation with the DIPSI method. This is a one-step method, and how to do this DIPSI test? It is by giving 75 gram glucose with 300 ml water to the pregnant woman, irrespective of last meal. The ingestion of this 300 ml has to be completed within 5 to 10 minutes. You have to measure blood sugar only once after 2 hours of ingestion, and if she vomits within 30 minutes of intake, you have to repeat the test next day. And how to interpret once you have done the DIPSI test? If after 2 hours it is more than 200, it is diabetes, and then don't forget to look for hypertension, the fundus examination, and the neuropathy. If it is between 140 to 199, it is gestational diabetes. 120 to 139, it is gestational glucose intolerance, and less than 120, it is normal. So what are the advantages of DIPSI criteria? Why in India we are following it? Because it is simple, feasible, convenient, economical, and acceptable in Indian scenario. So in a nutshell, to summarize the screening, it has to be done at first antenatal visit. If it is more than 140, you have to manage as GDM. If it is negative, that is less than 140, you have to repeat the test at 24 to 28 weeks. If it is positive, manage as GDM. If it is negative, you have to manage it as normal. However, DIPSI recommends that if it is normal, then you have to repeat the GTT at 32 to 34 weeks of gestation. Why we are talking so much about GDM, why we have to do screening? Because if a pregnant woman is having the problem of glucose intolerance, it affects her own health and it affects the fetal health. The maternal problems are too many in an early pregnancy. It can lead to spontaneous abortion, late pregnancy, PIH, macrosomia, hydramnios. It can have problems during delivery. Puerperium, it can lead to lactation failure, infections, and long-term postpartum. She is more prone to have a diabetes mellitus later in life. Fetal problems are also too many with the GDM. You can have stillbirth, neonatal deaths, congenital malformations, shoulder dystocia, RDS. Baby might have hypoglycemia after the birth, hypocalcemia. So looking at all these problems, we have to diagnose the GDM. Now you have done the screening test. You have diagnosed the GDM. What next? You have to basically give a first line treatment in the form of MNT, that is medical nutrition therapy, that is diet and exercise. And if it is not controlled by MNT, then you have to move on to insulin, which is first line therapy. If for any reason you are not comfortable with insulin or patient can't comply with insulin, you can try oral agents as well. When it comes to management, first and foremost is patient counseling and education, because there has to be a compliance from the patient side for frequent monitoring of blood glucose and for whatever intervention you are telling her, whether it is nutrition, exercise, oral agents, or insulin. Once you make her understand the importance of compliance, it will be an easy job for you to manage her throughout pregnancy. Then you tell her about the blood sugar targets, which she has to maintain throughout pregnancy. What are your plans for delivery and the postpartum care? Ideally, we all should have a registered nutritionist with us, because it takes a lot of time to make an individualized diet plan for these women. But if you don't have a nutritionist, then in a nutshell, you as a treating doctor can guide her on medical nutrition therapy, and your goal is to provide her adequate nutrition, adequate weight gain, prevention of ketosis, and prevention of postprandial hyperglycemia. So this is the chart. Based on BMI, you have to decide the calorie intake for her. And to summarize, the diet plan, it has to be a 30 kilocalorie per kg for normal weight woman, 24 kilocalorie per kg for overweight, and 12 kilocalorie per kg for morbidly obese woman. Diet should contain 50% carbohydrates, 20% protein, and 25 to 30% fats. Usually 3-meal regimen, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and in between 2 snack time is allowed to her. Unless and until it is contraindicated, physical activity should be included in a pregnant woman's daily regimen along with the diet. And this is the total weight gain goal for you as an obstetrician. If she is underweight, it has to be 12.5 to 18 kg. For normal weight, it is 11.5 to 16 kg. If she is overweight, then the total weight gain during pregnancy should not exceed between 7 to 11.5 kg. And if she is obese, it should not exceed from 5 to 9 kg. If it is not controlled with the MNT and you decide to shift to insulin therapy, which usually 50% of the women they do need, the insulin management has to be individualized. But most women, they require 0.7 units per kg daily. 2/3 of this insulin is administered in the morning and 1/3 is administered in the evening, with 1:2 ratio of short to intermediate acting insulin. There are many insulin preparations available, and this is just a rough guide according to the trimester how much insulin should be given to her. But again, I am emphasizing it has to be individualized. When it comes to oral agents, the metformin and sulfonylurea are the two most commonly prescribed oral antihypoglycemic agents during pregnancy. Due to efficacy and safety concerns, the American Diabetic Association and DIPSI does not recommend oral antihypoglycemic agents for GDM or pre-existing type 2 diabetes mellitus. But if you are giving metformin, remember it's an insulin sensitizer. Give it with meals to minimize the GIT side effects. Start at 500 milligram once or twice daily with food and then gradually increase the dose. No teratogenic effect has been demonstrated. In pregnancy, it is a category B risk factor, but still it is not approved by FDA for use in pregnancy. How the pregnant woman should monitor her blood glucose? She has to monitor at least 4 times self-monitoring daily. 1 is fasting and 3 after, that is after breakfast, after lunch and after dinner. After achieving her target level, the lab monitoring of blood glucose till 28 weeks, it should be once in a week, once in a month. Between 28 to 32 weeks, it should be once in 2 weeks. And if she is more than 32 weeks, once in a week, you have to have the lab monitoring of her blood glucose levels. Along with it, you have to monitor the fundus and for microalbuminuria. So what are the glycemic targets? The mean plasma glucose should be around 105. You have to maintain fasting at 90, postprandial at 120, and the blood mean plasma glucose should never go below 86. So if she comes with a GDM, you have to first try MMT for 2 weeks. If after 2 weeks, you do your GTT, if it is less than 120, continue MNT and physical exercise. If it is more than 120, you have to either start oral antidiabetic or insulin therapy for her. Once it is more, you have to monitor her fasting and postprandial every 3rd day or more frequently for insulin and bi-weekly for metformin dose adjustment to maintain the normal blood sugar level. During pregnancy, you have to monitor, you have to be extra vigilant with her blood sugar controls. These are the monitoring indicated in 1st trimester, 2nd trimester, and 3rd trimester. For fetal monitoring, you have to be extra careful about the fetal growth restriction. She can have the macrosomia. Then you have to look for polyhydramnios. So basically, you have to look for the growth and lighter volume in these GDM women. When to deliver them? So let us have a look at the FICO recommendations. It is recommended that before 38 to 39 weeks, unless and until there are some indications, you should not plan to deliver them. Take them up to 38 to 39 weeks. And if at this gestation, the birth weight, if the weight is less than 3.8 kg, or if it is appropriate for gestational age, and there are no problems with all these things, that is the control and compliance, then you have to continue the pregnancy up to 40 to 41 weeks. But if the birth weight, if the weight is 3.8 to 4 kg, or if the baby is large for gestational age, and the mother is having poor glycemic control, she is having poor compliance with your therapy, she gives you history of previous stillbirth, or she has a history of vascular disease, then you can induce labor at 38 to 39 weeks. But if the weight is more than 4 kg, then you have to offer the elective cesarean section to her at 38 to 39 weeks. Labor management has to be very strict for the fetal well-being, and you have to correctly titrate the insulin dose if she is on insulin. Don't forget about the postpartum care. If she was only on MNT, then you can stop monitoring, give her regular postpartum care, but do the GTT at 6 weeks postpartum. If she was on oral antihypoglycemic agents, then also you have to stop those drugs and you have to do the GTT after delivery. If she was on insulin, you have to stop the insulin because 2GDM does not require insulin once she delivers, unless and until there was a marked fasting hypoglycemia. So you can stop your insulin also, but don't forget to do GTT and monitor the postpartum care as well from sugar point of view, apart from the lactational failure and increased chances of infection. So what are the risk factors for persistent diabetes? If the pregnancy fasting glucose level was greater than or equal to 126, if you diagnose GDM in the first trimester, or if there is a prior history of GDM without documented normal glucose tolerance outside of pregnancy. Breastfeeding should be definitely encouraged immediately after delivery in order to avoid neonatal hypoglycemia, and it should be continued for 3 to 4 months postpartum, the exclusive breastfeeding, in order to prevent childhood obesity and diabetes in the offspring, and also to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes and hypertension in the mother. Contraceptive choices, she can use all contraceptive choices starting from barrier, long-acting reversible contraception, progesterone only pills, or she can have implants or rings. But remember, estrogen is contraindicated if she is having a vascular disease or if she is giving exclusive breastfeeding. Can we prevent GDM? Yes, if she comes to us for preconception counseling, please test her, give her counseling on adequate diet and nutrition and for maintaining the appropriate weight before starting the pregnancy. But if she's already pregnant, when she approaches you, then you have to counsel her on healthy eating and exercise and pay extra attention to the prevention of excessive gestational weight gain in early pregnancy, ideally before the 15 weeks of gestation. So to summarize, these are the key points from my presentation. You have to have universal testing for all pregnant women for GDM as per the Government of India recommendation. Testing is recommended twice in pregnancy, at first antenatal visit and then at 24 to 28 weeks of gestation. DIPSI recommends additional screening at 34 weeks. Single step 75 gram 2-hour OGTT test is recommended in India. Pregnant woman who is testing positive, that is after 2 hours, her blood glucose is more than 140, they should be started on MNT for 2 weeks. If 2 hours postprandial blood glucose is more than 120 after MNT and physical exercise, medical management in the form of metformin or insulin therapy of pregnant women should be started as per guidelines. Early delivery with administration of prophylactic corticosteroid therapy for fetal lung maturity should be planned only if there is uncontrolled blood sugar or there is any other obstetric indication which indicates delivery before 38 to 39 weeks of gestation. Vaginal delivery is definitely preferred. Caesarean section should be reserved for only obstetric indications or in cases of fetal macrosomia. Neonatal monitoring for hypoglycemia and other complications should be done, and postpartum evaluation of glycemic status by 75 gram OGTT at 6 weeks after delivery should be done, mandatory in all these women of GDM. Our ultimate aim is healthy baby and healthy mother. Thank you so much for your patience.